Hello, my name is Garrett and I'm with Blue Fish Aquarium here today to talk about different types of filtration. It's going to be a broad video just covering different categories, not really any specifics, but I do have some examples ahead of me. Now, if you find this sort of subject interesting and entertaining, please feel free to hit the like and subscribe button, and now let's get into it. I think that we should start this off with the older style filters towards the newer. To start us off, we're going to talk about the old school under gravel filter. Now, these have been around for a long time, one of the first filters developed for aquariums. They are typically either going to be air powered or power head powered. A lot of people don't think highly of them, but that's just because they're old. Even if they're old, they still work. They worked back in the day. They work here in the shop. Almost all of our sail tanks are powered by under gravel filters. So the under gravel filters work via an air pump or a power head that will stick onto the tubes. So they have two tubes sticking out of either corner, and typically you'll have a thick substrate bed with I'd say an average size aquarium gravel size would work best with a thick layer. Typically, the thicker the layer of substrate, the better, as the tubes pull water through the grate across the bottom of the aquarium, and that is where a lot of the nitrifying bacteria that will help break down all of the waste in the aquarium will reside and help purify the water. Like I said, these are definitely a very old school system, but tried and true, well tested. They do work. Not the most aesthetic choice. I'd say a slightly newer version of this that takes up, depending on how you look at it, more or less space. We've got the sponge filters. Now, sponge filters work with pretty much the exact same mechanism that the under gravel filters work, but instead of using the substrate layer to actually filter the water, there's a sponge around the tube. So same thing, with either of these two filters, you're going to need an appropriately sized air pump with some airline tubing, or a power head of some sort that can attach to the tube. Either one of those works great. Each has their own con and, I shouldn't say cons, but each one has their own benefits and drawbacks. A power head is going to be bulkier. It's going to take up more space, but it's typically going to be quieter and use less equipment, whereas a air stone or an air pump is going to need to take up space outside the aquarium. You need to have aquarium hose hooked up to it, and if you don't have a check valve and the power becomes disconnected or the line becomes disconnected, you run the risk of back siphoning water out of your aquarium, which in my experience it definitely can make a mess. Moving forward to a somewhat more modern invention, but has still been around for a very, very long time. In fact, if you have had an aquarium or started your first aquarium within the last 10 years or so, this is more than likely the style of filter that you picked up and started with. We're going to talk about hang on the backs. Now, hang on the backs are going to be a step up from the under gravel and the air powered filters like the sponge filter. Typically, these are going to be a box that hangs off the back of the aquarium and has a little down stem that pulls water up and through the filter. There's a bunch of different styles. Some use replaceable cartridges, others use sponges, biomedia, and then whatever chemical filtration you want to add to it as well. Lots of different styles and sizes. They make these all the way down to 2-gallon size, all the way up to 100-gallon size. They're going to be a bit more effective than a lot of the air-powered alternatives out there. But that being said, they do run the risk of, say you have a breeding tank, you've got a lot of small baby fish, you probably wouldn't want to run a hang on the back on there. And in the same breath, if you have a bunch of very large, very messy fish, you're probably not going to want to run one of these either, even if you have a very large one. Instead, what I'd recommend would be one of the newest filters to hit the market in recent years, the canister filters. Now, these are typically a box that sits outside of the aquarium on the ground, and then we'll have two tubes that run up and hang over the back into the aquarium. These are typically going to have the most amount of media space and storage space in them. Usually you'll have a lot of area for different foams, different chemical filtrations, different biomedias, and they're going to move a lot more water a lot faster than a hang on the back or an under gravel or a sponge filter. These are my absolute favorite. I recommend these to almost everyone that comes into the shop, regardless of the size tank they have. These come in a great range of sizes as well. Again, there's specific use cases I probably wouldn't recommend these for, you know, a breeder tank or, you know, a tank with very small fish, anything like that. But if you have a standard community tank or, you know, a monster fish tank or a big cichlid tank, anything like that, highly recommend the canister filters. I have had very little issues with these in general, and by far my favorite on the market. Now, another style that I want to talk about is an all-in-one aquarium. Now, all-in-one aquariums are aquariums that have had, they have a section of the back of the aquarium, typically the back of the aquarium anyway, that houses all your filter materials, your separate pumps. You can hide your heaters back there usually, and they're just really sleek. You know, you don't have anything hanging off the sides of the aquariums except for a couple wires. You don't have a big bulky sponge filter hanging out in there. You don't have an undergravel filter that's taking up space and limiting your option on what kind of substrates you can run. And I think the biggest advantage is that you can hide equipment. So typically you'll see these on a lot of Fluval brand aquariums. There's a lot of different manufacturers out there that make them like this. And it just helps keep a sleek looking aquarium, especially when it comes to saltwater nano tanks. A lot of the saltwater nano tanks are going to be all-in-one systems where you can hide your protein skimmer, you can hide a UV sterilizer if you'd like. Just very sleek. I would probably place these somewhere in between a hang on the back and a canister filter in terms of effectiveness. I'd say the overall real appeal to it is the sleekness factor of it. You know, you don't have a bunch of stuff hanging off the top of the aquarium. It's all pre-built into it, so maintenance is a breeze. Typically, they're just going to have a little foam insert that has cutouts for your different medias. That's very easy to access and very easy to clean. Pump maintenance is also typically very easy to take care of with these. I forgot to mention too, the motors on a lot of these, there's obviously no motors on the undergravel or on the sponge filter, but with the hang in the backs, typically there's a motor that needs servicing. There's going to be a separate pump that comes with the all-in-ones that's going to need to be serviced, and that's very simple because you can just remove the whole motor itself and then take it apart for further cleaning. And then canister filters are typically going to have a housing built into the top of the canister, and that will need servicing eventually as well. But yeah, this is just a broad description of a few of the different types of filters out there. I'll be making further in-depth videos for each one of these filter types to go over more generalized pros and cons and different use cases for them. Hopefully you learned something new in this video, and if you did and you found it entertaining and you'd like to see more content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to Blue Fish Aquarium on YouTube. You can always follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Blue Fish Aquarium. And most of the products that you've seen here in this video are also available with shipping online at bluefishaquarium.com. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you soon.